Assalamu alaikum all. Today we have a lecture regarding the responsibilities of youth. And this is actually the address of Qaeda Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah to the young people who are graduating from universities. And that was the occasion of convocation. So Vice Chancellor just invited Qaeda Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in that occasion and requested him to address with young people. So, in this chapter, we are going to read certain things that is related to the advices of Qaeda Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah to the youth, that how they can opt for different, they can join or opt for different profession and occupation they can join, and how it is impossible for a government to accommodate so many people as a government servant, because according to him it is very impossible that thousands of people are getting degrees from universities at once, and it is impossible for the government to accommodate so many people in one turn. So he is just advising youth that they can join a different profession like commerce, banking, and other professions. So at the same time, he is telling us in this address about the difficulties that the youth should know about, and because this was a newly born state, and he is just telling to the youth that how many, after how many difficulties they were able to achieve this state. So at the same time, along with all these things, at the same times, he is telling to the youth that what is the need of the hour in order to make this country a progressive one. So let's start with the text. Mr. Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, when I was approached by the Vice Chancellor with a request to deliver the convocation address, I made it clear to him that there were so many calls on me that I could not possibly prepare a formal convocation address on an academic level with regard to the great subjects with which a university deals, such as arts, history, philosophy, science, law, and so on. I did, however, promise to say a few words to the students on this occasion, and it is in fulfillment of that promise that I will address you now. Now he is addressing, and that when he came into, or when Vice Chancellor invited him and requested him to deliver a convocation address, he was actually mentally not prepared for that such sort of speech, and because he was so busy in his work. And different things, that he could not prepare a formal speech on this occasion of convocation. So he's just sharing with all the people that he may or he might be unable to um, uh, deal with this art, history, philosophy, and science and law. He is unable to communicate with the students in these about these subjects. So obviously, because he had promised to the youth that he will address, that's why he is just fulfilling his promise. First of all, let me thank the Vice Chancellor for the flattering terms in which he referred to me. Mr. Vice Chancellor, whatever I am and whatever I have been able to do, I have done it merely as a measure of duty which is incumbent upon every Muslim to serve his people honestly and selflessly. As per you all know, as per tradition, the host, the vice chancellor, has used some of a flattering term. He praised Qaid Azam a lot in his introduction. So, in that response, he is saying that whatever he has done and whatever he is doing, that is actually the duty of a Muslim, duty of a Muslim to serve his people honestly and selflessly. So, he is saying that he is not doing this just for getting praise, just for getting praises from the people. In fact, it is his own duty. It is a duty of every Muslim to fulfill his duties honestly and selflessly. In addressing you, I am not here speaking to you as head of the state, but as a friend, and as one who has always held you in affection. Many of you have today got your diplomas and degrees, and I congratulate you. Just as you won the laurels in your university and qualified yourself, so I wish you all success in a wider and larger world that you will enter. Now he is directly addressing to the youth, and he is saying that I'm just communicating with all of you not as a head of state but as a friend. And he is saying that now you are a lawyer, now you are graduated, and he is congratulating to the youth that they are now a qualified people, and they are the laurels in university, and they have won their degrees. So he is congratulating and wishing them all the best for the practical life. Many of you have come to the end of your scholastic career and stand at the threshold of life. Unlike your predecessor, you fortunately leave this university to enter life under a sovereign independent state of your own. It is necessary that you and your other fellow students fully understand the implication of the revolutionary change that took place on the birth of Pakistan. We have broken the shackles of slavery. We are now a free people. Our state is our own state. Our government is our own government of the people, responsible to the people of the state and working for the good of the state. Now he is saying that you are not like your predecessor, and there is a huge difference between these the old people our elders and our predecessors and this youth, because the predecessors was a slave of British government, the slaves of Indian government, but now they have their own state. This youth have their own state, this youth have their own country, their own government, and they are living in a sovereign independent state. So it is very necessary for the fellow students. He is saying that it is very necessary to understand this concept that we have changed the map of the world on the evolutionary terms. And we have created a new state in which we have our own people, we are now free people, we have our own state, own government, and we are living with our own people. So we have to work for the good of state, we have to work for it, for the freedom of this state. Now this page is completed, and now we are moving to the next page. The previous page says, freedom, however, does not mean a license. It does not mean that you can now behave just as you please and do what you like, irrespective of the interest of other people or of the state. A great responsibility rests on you. And on the contrary, now more than ever, it is necessary for us to work as a united and disciplined nation. Now, we are now, he is saying that you are or we are now a free people, but freedom doesn't mean that you get the license, you got the license of whatever you can do, but it is actually giving you the more responsibilities to secure the interest of the other people, to secure the interest, to secure the benefit of the people and state as well. So a great responsibility is resting on us, because now we have to work as a united and disciplined nation. Then he says, what is now required of us all is constructive spirit and not the militant spirit of the days when we were fighting for our freedom. It is far more difficult to construct than to have a militant spirit for the attainment of freedom. It is easier to go to the jail or fight for a freedom than to run a government. Now, this thing is a very important one, and he is addressing that it is very necessary for us now. This is the highest time that we should plan something to make this country progressive one, and those plans should be a constructive one, because now we need this constructive spirit as rather than our militant spirit, because militant spirit includes only the fighting, only the showing the grudges toward other nation or toward your enemy, but now we don't need this militant spirit, because now we don't have time to fight with others. We need to plan something, we need to construct and need this constructive spirit to plan and the things to make this country a progressive one. Because according to Qaeda-Azam, it is very easy to go to the jail on the name of the freedom, because you don't have to, in that case, you don't have to do anything. Just you are in a jail and you are just eating and fighting with others. But now this is the need of the hour to think about, to ponder over or about the progress of this country. It is easier to go to jail or fight for a freedom than to run a government. Let me tell you something of the difficulties that we have overcome and of the dangers that still lie ahead. Thwarted in their desire to prevent the establishment of Pakistan, our enemies turned their attention to finding a ways and means to weaken and destroy us. Now he is telling us that it is very easy to go to the jail rather than, and on the name of the freedom, rather than to run a government. Because to run a government, you need a planning, you need to think over that what you should do or what you should not. And you need a complete managing skills or management or a team. So it is very easy to go to the jail rather than to run a government, because that needs your complete roadmap in order to run that government. Then he says, let me tell you something. Now he is sharing some of the difficulties that they have faced or they had faced during this process. So he is saying that the establishment of Pakistan faced a lot of problems, and enemies are trying to weaken us and are trying to destroy us. Thus, hardly had the new state come into the being when came the Punjab and Delhi Holocaust. Thousands of men and women, children were mercilessly butchered, and millions were uprooted from their homes. Over 50 lakhs of these arrived in Punjab within a matter of a week. The care and rehabilitation of these unfortunate refugees stricken in the body and in the soul presented problems which might well have destroyed many a well-established state. But those of our enemies who had hoped to kill Pakistan at its very inception by these means were disappointed. Not only has Pakistan survived the shock of that upheaval, but also it has emerged a stronger, more chastened, and better equipped than ever. Now he is telling us or telling to the youth while addressing to them about the Punjab and Delhi Holocaust, because thousands of men and women and children were mercilessly killed and butchered. And he is saying that a lot of refugees, millions of refugees came into Punjab, and it was very difficult for a newly born state to accommodate a huge number of people and to give them or provide them and the care and rehabilitation centers were obviously provided to them, or they were pain stricken, they were body stricken, and obviously it was conspiracy by the enemies in order to destroy or in order to make it difficult for the newly born state to be a well-established state. So it was very difficult, but enemy tried their hard to destroy this state. But now we are most chastened, more well-equipped, more stronger, because they had faced all these shock and upheaval, and this newly born state faced a very difficult time. But along with that, they are more stronger now. Again, the second thing or second difficulty that he shared with the people, he said, there followed in a rapid succession other difficulties such as withholding by India of our cash balances, of our share of military equipment, and lately the institution of an almost a complete economic blockade of your province. I have no doubt that all right thinking men in the India Dominion deplore these happenings, and I am sure the attitude of the mind that has been responsible for them will change. But it is essential that you should take note of these developments. The stress importance of continued vigilance on our part. Your main occupation should be in fairness to yourself, in fairness to your parents, and indeed in fairness to the state. To devote your attention solely to your studies. Now he is telling us about the financial problems that was created, financial problems that were created by India, because they block our blocked our economical resources. They blocked our economic blockade for our province, especially in Punjab. So he's hoping, Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah is actually hoping that the right people who are right now sitting in the India will obviously or would obviously think about this, and they will obviously condemn this thing, that India should not do that and this. But what we have to do right now, according to Qaid Azam, along with all these problems, what youth have to do right now, youth have to have a attitude of fairness to themselves, a fairness or sincerity towards their parents, and a fairness and sincerity to the state. And at the same time, he advised to the youth to devote your whole attention toward their studies. So he's saying that devote your attention solely to your studies. So he is advising them to have an in-depth thinking about their future, about their studies. It is only thus that you can equip yourself for the battle of the life that lies ahead. So in that case, they would be able to fight the battle of the life who is waiting ahead. Only thus will you be an asset and a source of a strength and of a pride of your state. Only thus can you assist in its solving any great social and economic problems that confront it and enable it to reach its destined goal among the most progressive and strongest nation of the world. My young friend, I would therefore like to tell you a few points about which you should be vigilant and beware. Firstly, beware of the fifth columnist among ourselves. Secondly, guard against and weed out the selfish people who only wish to exploit you so that they may swim. Thirdly, learn to judge who are real, true, and really honest and unselfish servants of the state who wish to serve the people with a heart and a soul and support them. Then he said that in that case, if you concentrate on your studies, in that case, you will be an asset for your or strength for your state, and you will obviously you will be able to make it a progressive one and the strongest nation of the world. So then again, in the next paragraph, he is advising that you should be aware of certain people, and he has categorized it in two categories. The firstly, fifth columnist are those people who are the enemy of our country, but they are living in our country as well, and it is very difficult to point them out that who are the fifth columnists who are trying to destroy our state. So beware and vigilant about these fifth columnists. Secondly, Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah advised the youth to beware against those people who want to exploit you, who want to use you for their own benefit. So beware of these people. Thirdly, learn to judge who are really, because the third thing is the most important one, to learn and judge those people who are really sincere with the state, who are really want to work with sincerity for our state. So that you should help them or support them with the heart and soul. There is another matter that I would like to prefer to you. My young friends, hitherto, you have been following the rut. You get your degrees, and when you are thrown out of the university in thousands, all that you think and hanker for is a government service. As your vice chancellor has rightly stated, the main object of the old system of education and system of government existing hitherto was really to have well trained, well equipped clerks. Of course, some of them went higher and found their level, but the whole idea was to get well qualified clerks. Civil services was mainly staffed by the Britons, and Indian element was introduced later on, and it went up progressively. Well, the whole principle was to create a mentally, a psychology, and a state of mind that an average man, when he passed his BA and MA, was to look for some job in a government. Now, the first point that when I was starting this chapter, I told you that Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah is saying that government can't accommodate so many people. Obviously, they want well qualified, well trained clerks. So but it is not easy for the government to give them give the job to so many people who are getting their degrees from the universities. So he's saying that civil services was actually started by the Britons, but later the Indian element was introduced, and it was going well. But obviously, when a person who is doing his BA or MA, he got his degree. When he got his degree, he obviously looked for a government job, which is not possible for each and every person. If he had it thought he had reached its height, I know, and you all know what has been really the result of this. Our experience has shown that an AMA earns less than a taxi driver, and most of so-called government servants are living in a more miserable manner than many menial servants who are employed by well-to-do people. Now, I want you to get out of that rut, and mentally, and especially now that we are in a free Pakistan. Government cannot absorb thousand impossible, but in the competition to get a government service, most of you will be demoralized. Government can take only a certain number, and the rest cannot settle down to anything else. And being disgruntled are always ready to be exploited by persons who have their own access to grain. Now, I want that you must divert your mind, your attention, your aims, and ambition to other channels and other avenues and fields that are open to you and will increasingly become so. Now, he's saying that a taxi driver or any menial servant means the servant who are working in a home of other government servant. They are earning more as compared to a government servant. So government servant, the condition of the government servant is not so good, is not very good to get attracted. In fact, they are living a miserable life. Now he is saying that it is impossible for the government to absorb thousands of people who are getting their degrees from the universities. So in that competition, if you are you want to join the government government field, or if you want to join a government job, or you can or if you don't get it, then obviously you will be demoralized, and in that case you will be demotivated as well. So government can take only a certain number, and it is not easy. Sorry, government can only take a small number of people that is required in the offices. So he is saying that I want you, the Qaid Azam is actually saying that I want you to divert your attentions and aims to the other channels, to the other professions, to the other fields, and obviously those fields are increasing day by day. There is no shame in doing a manual work and labor. There is an immense scope in technical education, for we want technically qualified people very badly. You can learn banking, commerce, trade, law, etc., which provide so many opportunities now. Already, you find that new industries are being started, new banks, new insurance companies, new commercial firms are opening, and they will grow as you go on. Now, these are the avenues and fields open to you. Think of them and divert your attention to them. And believe me, you will there benefit yourselves more than by merely going in for government service and remaining there. In what I should say, a circle of clerkship, working there from morning till evening in most dingy and uncomfortable condition. You will be far more happy and far more prosperous with far more opportunities to rise if you take a commerce and industry, and will thus be helping not only yourself but also your state. I can give you one instance. I know a young man who was in a government service. 4 years ago, he went into the banking corporation on 200 rupees because he had studied the subject of banking, and today he is a manager in one of their firms and drawing 1500 rupees a month in just 4 years. Now, Qaeda Muhammad Ali Jinnah is addressing to the youth. And again, he is saying that you have so many fields like banking, commerce, law, and many other firms, insurance companies. They also need the people. And these firms and companies will grow as you will join it. So now these avenues, these fields are open to you. Think of them and divert your attention towards them, because they also need people to work. And if everybody is joining the government service, then who will join these people, who will join these companies? So obviously it is far more better than a clerkship, far more better than working from morning till evening in an uncomfortable condition. So you will be benefited in that sense if you join these firms, these insurance companies. If you join the banking and commerce, then obviously you will get a benefit from them. So he is just giving us or giving the youth the example of a man who was 4 years ago, he went into the banking corporation, and his salary was 200 rupees. But then he studied, because he studied the banking subject, and he's the manager. He was in a government service, and 4 years ago he went into the banking corporation actually. So on 200 rupees, and now after the 4 year, he is a manager of that firm, and his salary is 1500 rupees a month in just 4 years, and he's earning more as compared to a government job holder. So he says these are the opportunities to have, and I do impress upon you now to think in these terms. So Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah again telling us, again advising to the youth especially, to join these new fields, to join these new occupation and profession, and he is impressing upon us, or upon the youth, to have these opportunities. Hopefully this lecture will give you a lot of benefit. Hopefully you will understand whatever I have told you. Thank you for your patience. Take care. Allah Hafiz.